Hi, hi.
How's it going?
It's such a like the film is so devastating that immediately after the film, it's so difficult to start asking questions because I saw it again the second time, and because I of course knew what is going to happen, it was even more powerful this time because every time you know that what is going to happen, and then you feel like you should you know do something so that it doesn't happen, but you can't do anything because it's a film what it made. So
Yeah, the first time I watched it in a room full of people after it was kind of finished, I also felt the same kind of dread and almost like so depressed, like why did I do this? Because by that time I'd already had this strong relationship with the kids that it's pretty uncomfortable for me to watch as well. You know.
so if you can talk about like your personal journey of how did you become a filmmaker, or like when did you think of what who are you, what are you doing,
Yeah, of course.
your journey.
Um, I mean, I always loved films. It's hard not to when you're from India, you know. But I really started considering it seriously when I was studying in Bombay for undergrad. I went to Xavier's. I was studying history there. But my sister was a cinematographer. So I was always around, writers and actors and directors at that time. So it kind of demystified the process for me. I realized that, oh, people actually make films behind the camera. So I just kind of was really interested in studying it formally to some degree, but I started applying to schools in 2013 or something, and then I got into NYU grad film school with a scholarship, so I was able to pull it off. Otherwise, it would have been hard to convince my dad to let me go. But it's a really good program. It teaches everything very hands-on. Like I started, and I basically had to start making a film. For 5 years, I like wrote, directed, edited, produced everything for like different formats of short films. So you learn from a process of elimination. So I've been in New York since then, and I've made I'm like about 5 films old as well. I'm hoping that the next one is a feature. But yeah, that's about it.
But you're otherwise based in Uttarakhand, or where are you
No,
based?
I actually went to boarding school in Dehradun. So I went to Wellham, so I was very familiar with the area. Um, this film was inspired by a true event that happened in Bihar, and I kind of I wanted to like capture what I wanted to talk about this event itself, but I wanted to fictionalize it enough so I could make it my own. So I was like really keen to shoot it in the mountains, but in a place that felt kind of forgotten and little sickly itself, trying to oppose usually the pictures that you see of India here. Every time it's like Rajasthan for some reason. Any short film that's made from America, or very like saturated colors. So I wanted to make it very sickly and stuff. So the place I knew it so well, so it was the first thing that came to mind. But my family's from Delhi, and I've been kind of all over the place. I feel like I still think of India as home as well, even though I've been in New York for the last 6 years.
Must be early morning in New York right now, so I
It
hope.
is, yeah. I'm very glad because I've been trying to wake up early for the last 3 months and it's not working out so well. But I feel pretty awake right now.
the this event itself is so tragic and so powerful. So while scripting, what was it that you were really trying to capture in the script?
Yeah,
What was the whole incident can be looked at in several ways, and you have a very beautiful friendship. Like it's also a story of friendship, uh,
mm,
with the backdrop of this whole education system, and what are we telling our kids, and so how did this come, and what was because many times you hear all these kind of incidences left, right, center, like every day you open a newspaper and some this kind of incident is waiting for you. So what was your process? How did you react to this incident?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started writing, I started writing it in 2015, but I couldn't figure it out. I kind of struggled with it. That time I was supposed to make a much shorter form of this film. It was supposed to be no more than 12 minutes and stuff. So I think when I first read about the news, I started writing it from a place of anger, because you feel like it was, I think about 23 kids died in real life and it was almost instantly. So you feel a little bit of like that frustration that you do when you read stuff, coming out of places, especially which is your home. But I think for the same reason, it never worked on paper. I couldn't figure out the structure. It didn't feel right. Everything felt too sudden. I knew that I didn't want to make it about the event as much as like about the people that happens to it. Um, because if I started making it about the event, it became like an investigative kind of film, and then this happened if it's just like ABC was. I didn't want to stay in that genre. So I think the minute it started working was when I found the friendship, because you have to care about the people who die. Even if I show like a white with 20 bodies, you don't care if you didn't know any of them. So I eventually, I think it just became a lot more about, just my school experience and all my frustrations with it. I went to a really good school. I loved it a lot, but it was very, I think like most schools in India, it kind of comes down to like, there's only one way, that's the good way, and every other way is just difficult, and if you're difficult you can't really be dealt with. So I was interested in writing this character who was more of an individual in a very uniform society, who didn't feel scared to speak her mind. If something was wrong, she'll say it. She'll speak to adults in the way that she'd speak to her friends, because she doesn't differentiate that मैं बड़ा हूँ तो मुझसे ऐसे बात करो, you know what I mean? So I wanted to write someone who was like a little bit like original like that. And then I think it just slowly became about a lot of the scenes became a lot of, from like personal experiences. Like sometimes when I would get into trouble, I would just straight up lie about it because I just didn't want to deal with the consequences. But at the same time, thinking back, I still expected more compassion from the adult, in that instance. So it became like just about my school years in some weird way. Um, but it was very important for me to write the film in a way that it didn't like paint anyone as a villain. I didn't, because it's very easy to hear these tragic stories coming out of places like India. Because India, we're so many of us there. It's such a like a heavy populated country, and just a small mistake can have such bad consequences. But I don't think everyone is out to kill everyone. I think sometimes you're just living a life, and it's a difficult life, and you make a mistake and you can't take it back. So I wanted to like try as much as possible to like humanize the people involved in it, that not so that when you finish watching the film, you don't really be like, I don't like that guy and I don't like that guy was evil. So I wanted to be able to give some understanding to everyone's motives to some degree.
And the casting is phenomenal, because I think of course the two girls are really wonderful, and what you're mentioning, like you wanted to create a character like that. So I was very curious that whether this girl that you found, whether she was like that and that's how you made that character like that, or you wanted someone, and you looked for someone who is kind of who has that kind of a edge to her being. And
Yeah. I honestly, I don't even know how it happened. I got very lucky. It was like one of those magical things, like you write someone and then they just exist exactly where you're shooting. You know? It was, I wrote Bittu exactly like this, and I think visually she was a little different in my head. But I was very, I was very sure that I couldn't use professional child actors for this film, because, you want to. I wanted some kids who had a relationship to the space already, who knew the place they were. Like if they're from the if they're Pahadi kids, then they should know how to run and walk on a mountain, And I wanted the two girls to have a relationship already because I didn't have enough time to build that before shoot in a believable way. So I was pretty sure that I had to find kids just where I was shooting. So I started, it was actually the casting was the most challenging part because I started looking through all the government schools that were around the area. So I would go and um, I had a relationship with an NGO called Pratham, so they put me onto a lot of the schools in the district, and I just go visit and talk to the kids and conduct like theater workshops. But no one really stood out. I had one friend from Delhi come and help me. She's a brilliant actor herself, Nirvana Sani, because I was feeling like I didn't have a casting director, and it was really overwhelming. And some of these kids, they really want to act and they want to do whatever game you're playing, but it's like 40 of them together, it gets really overwhelming. So I couldn't single people out and actually create a situation where I could find the kids. But in retrospect, I found Bittu, her real name is Rani. Like on the first day that I started street casting, I walked into like a settlement that was 20 minutes away from the location, and all the kids were on holiday at that time, so they were just like messing around and playing and not like doing anything productive. So they're very happy if you can create a recreational situation for them. So we went in and started with all the theater workshops as much as we could, just to see who can listen and who can direct others, who's a leader in the group. She instantly emerged, like we had it like a instant connection. And so I kind of, it was almost like meeting someone romantically, when inside, you kind of feel the electricity immediately, and we both just were in sync. She looked very different. She was smaller and a little bit more feminine than the girl I had in mind, but every day that I went back, it just became more obvious. She was very much like Bittu in very scary ways. Like when I finally went to visit her in her school, like 2 weeks after, she was being called out in the assembly saying like, everyone's going to do their maths homework tomorrow. Kal Rani apna muh dho ke aayegi. And I got like really shocked because it was basically a scene out of the film. Um, so she was great. She was the only difference was she was really smart, very keen to learn English. Very good in the classroom. So I had to like make sure that I don't teach her the English lines that she's supposed to not know in the scene. Otherwise, she would have learned it, and she gets very angry that she doesn't know anything. So I deliberately didn't teach her the stuff that she was supposed to look confused for. Um, the friend Chand we found in the same community, they'd known each other since they were born. So there was already this familiarity between them, and but they had a very like competitive relationship. Chand was she didn't go to school at the time I found her, so she was lacking in a lot of social skills, so I had to teach her much more slowly and all of that stuff. But honestly, it was really educational. They were some of the best actors I worked with, even though they didn't had never acted before. It was very pure and magical.
And
Yeah.
even the headmaster or Saurabh,
Yeah.
you feel that they belong there. They're not like come
Yeah.
from somewhere. So about the other casting, if you can.
Yeah, Saurabh was the only professional actor that I found. I watched some of his work, and he'd worked in a film my sister shot. It was called Cat Sticks, and I loved him in that. And he was just, he has this really beautiful command over Hindi as well, which I was important to me, which felt like, I don't know, he does something with lines, like it doesn't feel like it's written. So he was also very good with the kids. So he came and, I didn't even audition him. I just spoke to him and I saw some of his work and I knew he was the teacher. So he came on pretty early. Everyone else was first time performers. The principal was like a lady who used to, like, there was a chalk where I used to go and have chai after the kids, after I played with the kids. And she used to just be sitting outside her salon and drinking tea in like a red sweater every day. And every time I come, she would be like, hi. I was like, I loved her face. So I asked her, like, will you act? And she's like, हाँ मैं कर लूंगी. So I think sometimes you just need someone to look like the part and be wanting to learn. So I would go every day and just teach her the lines, and she would like basically rattle the lines and practice with the sabzi wala and this and that. And then I just pushed her into it, you know. She
How
had a little bit of tough time, but you know,
so how long was this process of like going there, casting locations, and
yeah, I think I locked my location like first week of January in 2019, and then I stayed there till I shot the film beginning of March. So it was about 2 months. Um, Same way, like the shopkeeper was like the local bartender, you know. So they were all people who kind of looked like the part, and then I just hope to God that they'll put it off when they came to set. But I got very lucky. Yeah.
I think this whole like as you mentioned that the sequence of this the ink she kind of pours the ink. It was
Hmm.
quite a wonderful moment for me. Like you know, like this the way she puts it, or even this whole comment of like making these sounds like L and then they would say L. So it also
Yeah.
talks about this whole education system in India where we are blindly doing certain things which we don't really know. So how did you pick those things? Of course, it seems very conscious decision to do that. I also remembered an Iranian film called Two Plus Two is Equal to Five. Uh,
Yeah.
it's the where like you're told to do some things and then you do it, or even when this girl when she enters the principal's room and then she said that go out and then she goes out and then she again puts her hand and then
Yeah.
she kind of enters. So all these finer nuances which I really like. So not a question but like you kind of how did you kind of place them? And another thing is like this whole absurd uh, the procession, the dance procession which happens. I think it really worked in the film because it just took us away from that place, and then there is this outside celebration of sorts, and we don't know what we are celebrating, but we are kind of dancing. So that
Yeah.
also really worked in the film, which was very unusual in the script. I really didn't expect that, and because we didn't expect it, that really became like I felt that it's a very good thing to have in the film, which distracts. So if you can kind of generally talk about.
Um, with the stuff in the classroom and stuff, it was, I don't know, it's like one of those things you end up doing in every film and you don't know why you're doing it. But I think language is very important to me to explore in film, especially in the way that it's taught. I don't believe. I feel like English and grammar is very. It's like not real. I think it's used as a tool of superiority and both racial and class superiority, especially in India. Like we've taken on what the British taught us, you know. So I went to a very like elitist school where if you pronounce something badly, you were a god, you know. Like it was very like you would judge by the way you spoke. Where I it's so it's so absurd. Like it depends on so many things the way you speak, and definitely is not a mark of your intelligence. So I wanted to I wanted to just I keep I think repeatedly showing how people equate that to their confidence level in so many different ways, you know, and how like I realized also when I was shooting this film with the kids that my Hindi is not good at all. Like when I'm angry or I'm, you know, when I want to express something very specifically, I can't do it in Hindi as well as I can do it in English. And I think that's been a big point of shame for me to some degree. So I wanted to make, you know, I wanted to just show that in its all its objectivity. It doesn't matter if you don't know English, like you know. But the main theme in Bittu, I think, is like the focus on um, you know, these modes of discipline. Like, you know, you stand up and you talk, you ask before you enter, and you know, you say it in English only, then you can be excused in the class. But like you're not they didn't actually protect the kids. They weren't teaching them anything of value. that that they can grow up. Like she was so special, and I think the audience can see that this kid is so special, but no one made her feel like that in her world. So I felt like I wanted to constantly have her own world disappoint her over and over again, and at the end of the day, like, she's only saved because of herself in whatever way it is. Like, even in if it's her badtamizi or if it's her individuality, whatever it is, it's on her. Like, she's not going to change the way she thinks or she speaks and for anybody. And I think eventually that saves her. I think the teacher also can see that. Like, when he shakes her like that, he's not trying to be rude. I think it's for in his head it's education. So I think the teachers, even when they really want to be good, they don't know how to be good because they are also a part of the same system. You know what I mean? So I think that was just constantly a recurring theme for me in any and every kind of situation in India. I think it's always authority, and then jopi hai under the authority. You know what I mean? You can't talk to certain people. You have to keep your head down, which I hate. Um, so that was, I think, where that came from. And the wedding procession scene, it was one of the first few scenes that was in my head, just visually, to be like the part where Bittu discovers that something is wrong. Like when you feel like when when someone dies, I think the scary part is also when you see versions of other people react to that death. When you see people scared or mourning, it's very scary for a child to see it. So I wanted to discover it in an environment where it's like, where she sees the principal in a way that she's never seen any person before, and it's happening in a situation that is not normal at all, but you kind of just know it and you run. So it was just like a visual um element that it came very early. And also, like, everyone here was like, when I was editing the film in America, and they were like, but what is this procession, like, where does this come from? I said, it just happens sometime in India. Suddenly there's a procession and everyone starts dancing. In my head it was like a wedding thing that they were going to, but like, it didn't really have to make sense. Some people think it's like a surreal element, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it almost becomes like an absurd, surreal kind of a thing, and it of course, more than reality, it also works metaphorically in a way, which is a very good juxtaposition. I wanted to also ask you, because there are so many of our friends who are always grappling with where to study and how, whether it's good to study outside of India, and you want to make films in India, and because this life in India. So if you can share a bit of your experience in NYU, and
Yeah.
how did it help you? How did it kind of like how did it change you as a person, your thought process, and about the school also, like yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's like, now I know so many more people who are making films my age and a little bit older, a little bit younger. One thing I know for sure, that there's no one way to do it. Everyone just accidentally finds their own way to do it. Like, some people are so much better than me or most of my friends from film school, and they've never studied film formally. You know what I mean? It's just like different avenues of finding what you love to do. But I got very lucky because I got like a full scholarship to school, so I was able to come basically for free. And otherwise, it gets really expensive, which I don't think is sustainable. Here, people can take loans to come, but otherwise, from coming from India, the only drawback is that it's too expensive to sustain. But there's a lot of advantage to it. Like, the school has a very big equipment center. So every time I wanted to make something on film or whatever, I had all equipment for free. They make you do everything in NYU. Is a very hands-on project. So if I like wrote the film, I had to write it really quickly and shoot it with a crew that I didn't really know. And everyone rotates in different positions. So you leave the school knowing how to record sound, how to be the script supervisor, how to be the AD. And so by a process of elimination, you figure out what you're good at doing. So after school, you can do things for money as well. Also, you're not, because usually when you go to film school, you can't really start making money writing, directing. So we I edit for money. You know what I mean? So it teaches you all these skills that are very technical as well, which was really good for me. I think it was important for me to leave India to make movies about India. Like I really don't have any intention of making American films, but I like making them here because I think my first readers are here, and I like finishing a film here and writing it a little bit, and then going back to India and rewriting it and shooting it there for like a couple of months. It allowed me to it gave me like a vantage point to home, because I started asking myself things that I was so used to. Like, I know it's like that, but why is it like that? You start seeing things differently when you're away from home a little bit. So that was really helpful to me. But now I feel like I need to go back and spend more time in India because I'm running out of lived experiences and I just miss it. Um, but I I I would really recommend film school if it's feasible. It just gives you more than anything. It gives you a very big community that comes in use again and again and again. Like over
Neela,
here, it's helped me like
पर नीला
it's helped me like getting when you apply to festivals, you're also from NYU. Just adds brands to you as a filmmaker because otherwise it's even with it, it's pretty lonely and it's mostly a big struggle. So I think it helps in community and influence, but there are 100 ways to do it.
uh, Great that you got the full scholarship because yeah, so many of friends who want to go and it's so expensive that one.
It's
Great.
yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, it's not fair at all, to be honest.
So there are a few questions which have come from the audience. I'll just kind of read these few questions, and you can just like maybe talk about it briefly. So can you elaborate on the process that led you to such a devastating end? What are the challenges in directing small kids on such hard-hitting subject? Uh, sh- uh, Cinematography is very different in this film compared to Cat Steak. We saw many frames even out of focus in Bittu. I would like to know what went on her mind when envisaging frames for Bittu. Also, which moments in the film was not planned in the script but turned out on the spot. So these are a few questions.
Yeah. Um, I think. Wait, what was the first question? Sorry.
Sorry, I was supposed to ask one by one, but then it will go on and on.
I remember most of them.
Uh, Elaborate on the process that
The
led.
devastating ending. Yeah, I mean, the ending was inevitable because that's actually what happens in the actual event. But it was very important for me to have the last moment in the film feel like even if there is no hope, that she feels a little bit hope because I had set up Bittu as a character that she won't give up and she won't um, she's not going to just accept things the way they are. So I wanted her to, even if after the death scene you want her to try a little harder, like try to save her friend or try to do something about it or try to get help, kind of a thing. But I couldn't figure out what it was for a very long time. I kept rewriting the end like 2 3 weeks before the shoot. But when I used to play with these kids and spend about like 3 4 hours with them every day for 2 months, they used to do this thing they used to take a fatti and put like a stone at the end of the fatti and just like, you know, hit it on the cars that are going by in the highway. And it makes a really crazy sound. So I was like, I needed something from her world that I felt like she could do that, whatever in her small mind she thought of doing would help, would just gonna get Chand out of this like remote area and get her to a hospital was the best I could do. So in my head, I feel like even if she's not dead or she survived or whatever there is, we have to end with hope because there's a lot of dismal endings in India anyway. I think people need more hope than anything. So it was devastating, but I wanted there to be a little bit more after that, like another breath. um, the kids working with the kids was really challenging in a way that like I had to leave everything I learned in film school behind, like I didn't have any tools to work with these actors. There was nothing right way of saying it or not. You just had to figure it out. It was just tailored to how the two girls were different. It was just about when I was 2 months before the shoot, when I started rehearsing some scenes with them, I used to make like a Nukkar Natak kind of version of some of the scenes. So we would just play, and we had to play it with a lot of the other different kids also. And then Bittu would be like, "Nee, nee, nee, main karti hu," you know. Otherwise, she wouldn't just be like, "Okay, Bittu, go and do this." She couldn't just follow instructions simply. It had to become a competition. But she, you know, the more I rehearsed, the more dead the scene became. So I stopped doing that very quickly because they started learning it and then they would only do it one way. So I would just go every day and like teach them some lines, teach them something from the classroom scene, teach her the poem and the hand pump, and like then start playing another different game. So mostly we just spend the 2 months building trust and getting to know each other's lives. You know, I knew everyone in their life, and I knew her teacher. I knew the guy who in the shop next door who talks to the kids. I knew the parents. So in the set on set, I used to be like, you know how Vishal sir screams at you. Can you make that face when you Vishal sir make? You know, so I needed to give her a reference that she knows. Then I started showing them. I used to take my laptop to the village and show them like movies that kids had made. I show them Lion, and then I show them the making of Lion to be like, look at this 5-year-old kid. Like he can just, you know, their biggest problem was they would start laughing. So I just taught them this thing of like you have to count till 10 and not laugh and stay in a feeling, you know. And then I show them, see, can you see this big camera behind them? They're like acting for the camera. So when you made it into a competition and made them see that it was possible, they also wanted to do it. But more than anything, it was just trust. You know, they would do anything for me by the end of the day, and I would do anything for them. But it was a little tough because they didn't want to act with adults after a while, like people that they didn't know. Like they were like, she did 2 scenes with Saurabh, and then she didn't want to act with him. You know, because she just, I think that's what they're taught. Like, you know, just don't trust everyone. So I had to act opposite all of them. So that's why there's not that many whites, you know. We're in clean singles because I'm actually like, I'm the one who's shaking her and I'm the one who's next to her when she's saying the poem and stuff like that. So it was pretty, you know, the best thing I learned was you have to do whatever it takes. There's no one way of doing it. Um, as far as the cinematography, you know, Shreya is amazing in that like she'll do whatever the film needs and you can't really tell her work. I think that's a good trait to have as a cinematographer. You know, she's my older sister, but this was the first time we were working together. So we had a lot of years of prep, you know, before. So it was like we would fight a lot on set and people would get like really tense, but in 60 seconds we were fine, you know. But we were both fighting for the film, so it was all like the film was before any relationship or anything. So that was a really good and new experience. But we knew we wanted to make it feel like documentary style that was like very real, so you don't feel like it's fiction, you know. Very long takes so that you're staying with the kids for so long that it doesn't feel like it's acting. So it was rooted in a lot more realism than Cat Sticks. Cat Sticks was very every image was like a photograph, you know. And my references were more like you know, there's a film called Kes, Ken Loach's Kes, that's like he's very famous for going to a town and making the film with everyone from there. So they shoot with 2 cameras, so whatever's happening is being captured from different directions, so you don't feel like it's acted. So we wanted to do that, but we didn't have 2 cameras, so we just did things over and over again. And I almost didn't know where Shreya was, so she was just like capturing it from different places. I think it goes a lot out of focus because we were shooting with very short length lenses also. It was like Cook lenses. They were beautiful. We wanted to like have a lot of liberty in like the color. So we got these like old vintage lenses, but you know the focus goes away really quickly. Um, but we kind of wanted that, especially like, you know, we wanted like an immersive feeling when you're running around with Bittu to feel like, you know, what has happened, this and that. You know, when she discovers the dead bodies and stuff, we didn't want to sensationalize the event itself. We didn't want to make it feel like a spectacle. So it was more about her discovery of it. And when you actually see the bodies, you're very far away from them. So you get what's happened, but you don't see anything, any child up close. Um, the children themselves didn't know, like I didn't want to put them through any unnecessary feelings of loss and death and stuff. So I would talk. They know more about death than I do. Like they've seen a lot of people dying around them, and in their own mind they've understood it in themselves. But um, they understand like feeling sick or lost. They understood the feeling of someone going away, and So I, with Rani and Chand, it was very simple. Like just pretend to sleep and don't breathe for some time. Like don't breathe like that. And with Rani was amazing. Like she used to be running around and joking with everybody, and I say, "Hey Rani, where's Bittu?" And then she would suddenly change. Like she knew the difference in character. She had created it in her own way. With the other kids that were actually lying down dead, I used to play this game with them and I taught it to Saurabh too, so he would do it with the kids, and they would accept him as a teacher. But so they would just walk around the space, and I'd say clap, and then they'd clap, and I'd say jump, and everyone would jump together. I say stop, and everyone stops. And I said start, and everyone starts walking, and then I would reverse everything. So when I say stop, they actually start, and all of that stuff. So it's like a exercise to make them listen to me and be careful about direction. So on the day of set, I was like, okay, when I say doctor, everyone's gonna lie down and play doctor. So they just was like, it was like a game for them. They didn't really know what was happening, but their parents knew and the teachers knew. So I wasn't really doing it without their permission, but I didn't feel like they need to go home thinking that this happens in schools. So it was a lot of manipulation, for their own benefit.
Is there anyone from the crew here present with us?
No, unfortunately not. They're not there. But I should have asked Shreya to come, but she's in the mountains without any internet right now.
Well, the final
But
thing is like really heartiest congratulations for this nomination for the Oscars. So how
thank you.
what does it mean to you, and what is it like? How do these films, student films, go to Oscars? It's like the school thing, or and now what is going to happen with it? Like when
Yeah. So it's like the student Oscars. There are a couple of different ways to get into the Oscars. The main Oscar ceremony to get a nomination, you have to win a certain amount of awards in Academy qualifying festivals, or you win this Academy award competition kind of a thing. So we applied, and they go through, like we were semi-finalists in July, so that means we were like one of 93 films that got selected by 20,000 films, so which was all student-made films, both international and domestic. And now we're in the final round, which means we're the top seven. So 3 out of the 7 win medals, and then from the Academy. So it's the same body that judges the Oscars. And then we have to launch an Oscar campaign to get a real nomination. So I don't know how I'm gonna pull that off, but we've been very lucky. We have a lot of like publicists and marketing people who specialize in doing this over here. So we've been in touch with all of them, and we're gonna try and get it all the way to the end. It means a lot, honestly. It feels a little stupid and surreal because it doesn't feel real at all. But I think it would be like if I get this, I can raise like real money for the kids. I can actually make sure they have, they get in a pakka house and they have like a real education. I can actually do those things if I get this in reality. But it's been really cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite exciting.
oh, and when do we come to know the result?
I find out end of September, and then there's a ceremony mid-October.
Okay, so we
I'll keep you posted.
all the please do keep us posted.
Yeah, yeah.
All the friends who have seen the film, I would like to request them to kind of support and give some whatever positive.
Yeah, please chant and manifest and do all of that.
And so thank you so much for
Of
joining
course.
us early morning. And there are lots of questions. I'm sure that this whole thing, we are doing this online festival for the club for the first time. It's very difficult when like we don't really meet. So I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of them, a lot of the audiences, they have their questions. So they might kind of, they will send it to you by whatever mails or communication.
Yeah. I mean, you please feel free to share my email address. I can also write it here if that's easier.
Yeah. If you can just
Um,
write it in the comments where everyone can see it, and yeah, and it's like I would like to see your earlier films also. So please do send.
yeah, I'd be happy to send it. Yeah.
And all the best, and
Thank
let's.
you so much. It's really amazing to actually watch it and talk to Indian audiences because I haven't done that. I haven't watched it in a room with anyone because of COVID, but this was really special. It was very important for me that people at home see the film. So thank you for that.
Most welcome. Thank you, and please do keep making short films, even if you
I
make
will.
feature films. So all the
No,
best.
I've written a new one, so I'll make one soon as the world opens up. All
Okay,
right. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone.